welcome again. My contact information is on the slide if you ever need to get hold of me. But I wanted to get to know everybody here a little bit. So I have a couple of requests. One, if you are comfortable and your Wi-Fi allows it, I would love to see your faces. And two, I would like to know what your full name and affiliation is. So please, if you could change your name on your Zoom screen and add your affiliation. So I will change mine just as a, just to model what I'm saying. So I'm going to rename myself from the menu and add my affiliation and call myself Aditi Pai Spelman, just so you know pretty much my name and the institution that I work at. So while you're doing that, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know it's a Friday evening and you must be pretty psyched and passionate about teaching and learning to be here on a Friday evening. So thank you. I'm excited to see you, and I'm especially excited to see that you turned your cameras on and I can see the human beings that I'm talking to. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you're doing that, as you're changing your name and adding your affiliation, I'm going to request Irina or Diksha to project a poll so we get to know everybody in the room a little bit better, to see where you're coming from and what you're dealing with in fall. So some of you may be directing your faculty development thing, whatever it is, it's a center or a committee. Some of you may be here for other reasons. I don't really care why you're here. I'm just happy to see you. I think I have 3 people who responded out of 6. And we have some more coming in, so I'm gonna let you respond to that. Once again, if you're just coming in, rename yourself with your first name, last name, and institutional affiliation, and tell us a little bit about what brings you here on a Friday evening. And as I told you, I really don't, have a favorite answer. I'm just happy that you're here. All right. There's still about 3 of you who have not responded to this question, so I'll let you get around to answering this poll. Okay, and if you're just joining us, I'm inviting you to once again turn your camera on if you're comfortable and your technology allows it, and just pretend this is a real conversation that's happening, face-to-face conversation happening in your living room. Let's end the poll here. I think most of you are here because you are in some form affiliated with the Teaching and Learning Center on campus or faculty development on campus. So that gives me a little bit of background on you. And one of you is here for some other reason. I suspect that's my dear colleague from Spelman, Mark Maloney. So hey, Mark, thank you for being here. Let's go to the second question in my poll. And I'm really curious to see where our institutions are with regard to the plans for fall. Are we going virtual? Are we going to be in person? What is happening at your end? And I hope everybody responds to this. Wow, okay. We have 1 hybrid and 3 all virtual. Nobody is in person. So that's interesting. And 1 person hasn't responded. I'm guessing they have stepped away to get water or something. So let's end the poll here. It looks like we don't have anyone that is actually teaching in person. That's really useful information. Because when I was actually getting ready for this session, I assumed that I was going to be talking with people who are thinking about faculty development in the context of the virtual environment, not necessarily face-to-face, So I'm so happy that that was a sane assumption on my part. So without further ado, let me tell you what I have in mind for today. Um, my plan today is to really just use this time as a way for us to learn from each other. As you can imagine, I have not lived through a pandemic previously as a co-director of a teaching center. So this is my first time, just like yours, uh, dealing with this kind of a change of plans. And so I think the smartest thing we can do is share our experiences from our different institutional backgrounds and different degrees of prior experience leading the center. We can learn from each other and then network. And so you'll notice that my role, the way I see it, is very diminutive. I'm going to facilitate a conversation and hopefully we'll have an interesting one. And because there's so few of us, there's going to be a small change in plan to what I said up here. I'll ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to reflect on it, and then we'll do a group discussion. So now I was originally thinking of doing breakout rooms because we were expecting the 50 people who registered to show up. But since it's just 5 of us, we'll just have this small intimate conversation and then we'll just share our thoughts. At this point, if you give me a thumbs up that you heard my plan and you're good with it, that'll be very helpful. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. All right, so this is your first question. What was the norm for your teaching center? So consider all these different aspects of your faculty development outfit, whatever it is, whatever its name is. What was your understanding of the budget for it, the staffing for it, the programming in it, the support that it garnered from the faculty on campus, and the support it gained from the administration on campus? So by yourself, really quickly think about what your answers are to these questions for the next 2 minutes, and then we'll just talk about your answers, you know, as in a group. So for the next 2 minutes, just think about what your answers are for your center with respect to these aspects. And you can give it a rating from 1 to 5, 1 being really inadequate and 5 being ideal. It's what you dreamt of. So if you're not, you know, fond of writing long sentences, just give it a rating from 1 to 5. So Irina, I think we have 9 people. I think we have just enough people to do 2 breakout rooms. So maybe we'll go ahead with the breakout room idea in about 1 minute. So I'm going to invite all of you to think about how this looks at your campus. And then I'm going to ask Irina to send you to a breakout room with maybe 3 people in one and 3 people in each room. That way you'll have a fun conversation without any interference from me.
Sounds good. Can you repeat, please, how many people in each room?
3.
Okay.
4. I think one more person just joined us.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to remind you, if you were already here, that I'm asking you to consider what the normal was for your faculty development on campus in terms of the budget, the staffing, the programming, the level of support people had for it on campus, both faculty and administration. And when you get into your breakout room, I would like you to share your answers with the people in your breakout room. And here's the fun part. So I'm going to give you instructions. In a minute, Irina will send you to your breakout room. But when you go there, I want you to introduce yourself And the person with the, I'm not sure why my slide is not advancing, but the person with the shortest last name gets to be the scribe and write notes on a Google Doc that I'm sharing the link for in the chat. Hey, welcome back everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen. So we just did all of this, and the conversation in our breakout room was interesting because we noticed how different things were at our institutions. So if you like, you can comment on the experience in the chat for what the conversation was like for you in your particular group and any insights. So I'll be quiet for the next, minute or so and let you comment on how the experience went for you. And we'll be reading to see what comes out of your thoughts. Thank you for those of you who are writing in. It's interesting that all of us are picking up on the structures in our different institutions and how sometimes it has to do with students and faculty development kind of together, sometimes it's separate. So that was our old normal. Let's look at how things changed since the pandemic started. So by yourself, just think about the way things have changed for your particular institution and your teaching learning center with regard to the budget, the staffing, the programming, and the support, all the things that you talked about. And whenever you're ready, Irina will send us back into breakout rooms. It's going to be new groups this time because this is a meetup, and one of the goals is for us to network. So we'll maybe see new people this time. So I think the things to consider. Think about the budget, the staffing, the programming, and the support it has on campus, and how things have changed since the pandemic. And then we can have a conversation and come back together again. So let's take 10 minutes for this breakout room whenever Irina is ready to send us off. So welcome back, and let's hear a little bit about what your discussions were. Just so that you get your bearings, I'll get us started. I was talking about how, on one hand, the demand for faculty development has gone up, and on the other hand, the budget has gone down. So it feels like an interesting problem to have in terms of how COVID has changed the function of the Faculty Development Center on our campus. I would love to hear what the conversation was at your ends, and if you're willing to share, just raise your hand and unmute yourself, and Deeksha can spotlight you if you raise your hand. So what were some changes you noticed in your center? Sarah.
Okay. This is the first time I've used like the raise your hand as a user. We didn't necessarily talk about the way you framed it as the demand has gone up and the budget has gone down. But I've seen some things about like the need for faculty support or development with the technology has gone up, and just the ability to meet that need is struggling, and so yeah, at best, someone had talked about, Candace had talked about, they provide 50-something videos on all the different things you can do, but it's too overwhelming. Yeah, and so just trying to manage providing all the help in the right way, I think will be the biggest challenge.
Yep, I think that sums it up really nicely. Just pointing to the resources often doesn't do enough, doesn't go far enough, because what we really need is a community that tackles this journey together in a methodical way, and often we don't have time for it. Thank you, Sarah. Other thoughts or things that came up in your conversations?
Just to add on to Sarah's point, something I didn't have time to share, but besides all the 52,000 videos and how to transfer to online, one of the things I find, and it's not really safe to share with the techie group, is that each time that they do an online little video on how to help, they go on and on about the philosophy of engaging students behind the technological online learning experience. There isn't an instructor out there that doesn't care about engaging students. So it's like, I have no idea why they can't just skip all the philosophy and just get down to, you know what, here's a template, try this for the first template that you need. And then let's kind of weave together this community of people that may have similar problems, or others may go off to do something else, instead of just beginning with this. I don't know, maybe it's just the way, it's a paradigm of thinking with technology, you know, experts, but I find that a waste of time, and I want to throw up my hands and go, you know what, I'll find it another way. So
I hear you on that, because I think there are certain things you can assume. If a person shows up to faculty development, I think it's a good assumption that they care about engagement, and it's a good assumption that time is limited. So I hear you on both those points. Excellent. Anyone else? We'll take one more person and see what you want to share from your conversation in your breakout room. All right, so maybe we'll save you for the end if you're not raising your hand. Let's go to the last part. So far, I think we've established that, you know, there was this normal for whatever our center was like, and things have changed. Sometimes maybe in a, you know, an unexpected way, sometimes in a very expected way. But I think the bottom line for us today is to actually strategize how to respond to this. So I am very much like Candace. I'm not going to convince you that, you know, we need to do this. I'm just going to say, I'm assuming that we're all on the same page, that we want these strategies. So I'd like us to brainstorm on the strategies that you have already used or are planning to use in fall for your institution. And then we can share them and see if something from another person in this group actually makes sense for you. So let's take a few minutes and again, go to our breakout rooms and talk about you know, strategies that you have already used or plan to use around your institutional faculty development center. And we can think about that as a bigger group when we get back. So Irina, I'm not sure if we have more than 8 minutes for this entire session. So let's not do the, you know, the breakout room at all. Let's just put our strategies in the chat feature so you can think about, you know, you can read each other's strategies and maybe comment on the ones that resonate with you. So let's just type in reflective silence, and then at the end we can just read out the ones that make sense to us. So everybody, hopefully you follow the plan, and let's go. So many interesting ones are being listed. So if you're struck by something, read that one out loud, and maybe the person who shared it can elaborate if you have a question, or you can just read it out loud and say, I get it, this is a great idea. So I'm just gonna ask you one more time to raise your hand and maybe read something out loud that made sense to you as an interesting way to deal with it. I love the idea of using asynchronous work during a 3-hour Zoom session and then coming back. That is absolutely cool. I think that's a great strategy for those of us who have longer Zoom sessions. I'm going to ask you to, you know, identify some lists, some things from the list that we just shared. I love that we are talking about free resources, strategies for structuring the Zoom sessions, strategies for structuring faculty community on campus. So thank you for all those suggestions. Irina, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're at time. for this session?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, so I'm an advocate for, starting on time and ending on time. So those of you who joined us a little bit late, I hope you got some tips from the last part of the conversation. But in the early part, we just talked about what the normal was and how things have changed and strategies for dealing with the new reality of teaching virtually online. As it turns out, most of us are doing something like that. The last thing I want to tell you is we'll share these resources, the chat list in some form from the organizers. And I want to wish you a very successful fall semester and a restful rest of the summer, whatever remains. So thank you very much for coming. I'm going to linger. If you have time, you're welcome to stay back and ask me any questions you have. But if not, have a fantastic Friday. And thank you once again for joining us.